Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The Girls in the Cabin, written by Caleb Stevens. It's a thriller. When I read this, it reminded me of Stephen King's Misery and also The Ritual. Just the setting, this cabin in the snow and the forest as well, reminded me of those two books. It's a book that uses a lot of action, fast pace, a lot of shocks as well, a few twists, but it's mainly shocks that drive the story. Also, there's an emphasis on the character's stress in the story, on urgency, that propels the story forward as well. It was a good read. I enjoyed the read. It's the first book I've read by this author, and it won't be the last because I think the author can really tell a good tale, really drives home all those high levels of stress, tension, suspense that a good thriller should have. This book asks the question, how far will you go to protect yourself and the ones that you love? It asks that a lot in this book, and the characters do deliver on that. But let's talk about the overall story. So we have Chris and his two daughters, Kayla and Emma, and they're hiking in the wilderness. Their mother, his wife, passed away from cancer some time ago, and they've lost touch a bit, him and his two daughters, and he's using this hiking trip to try to reconnect with them. He thinks it'd be good for them to get out in the outdoors, away from things, away from life, not take their cell phones, for instance, things like that. But all is not going as planned. So Emma vanishes in the wilderness and they're trying to find her, and a storm hits. It's a massive storm. We have rain falling, we've got lightning, high winds, the temperature drops. It's a massive storm and they can't find the youngest child, Emma. They eventually find her, and her leg is trapped underneath a boulder and she's got a broken leg. So now they're in dire straits basically. They have to free her from underneath this rock, and then they have to find help. And how can they do that? It's night time, massive storm, they have no way of contacting anybody. And then it also starts to snow. So they think if they can't find shelter soon, they'll perish in this wilderness because they've got no escape basically. One of them's injured, and if Chris leaves his daughters there, he just thinks they won't survive. So they're basically trapped in the wilderness. They're trapped on this trail in the middle of nowhere. So as luck would have it, they stumble across a cabin in the woods, in the middle of a snowstorm. So kind of think Misery at this point. Also think The Ritual, even though The Ritual didn't have snow, with the cabin they found, has that feeling as well, because it's got this atmosphere in the book that feels very sinister. Even before things really start to happen in this story, the chills and the thrills and the gripping moments, the atmosphere of this story already feels sinister. Because you're just waiting for something to happen. You're wondering, is this cabin too good to be true? Somebody is in the cabin. It's a lady called Clara, and she lets them in and she helps them. And fortunately, Clara used to be a nurse, so she treats Emma's injury, sets her leg a bit better, and just deals with possible infection, cleans it, all that sort of thing. And she also feeds them, feeds our people who are lost in the storm, Chris, Kayla and Emma. Everything seems very peaceful. They think they're saved, they think they're rescued, they think they're at peace. They think soon they can find help, get to a town somewhere and find proper help, proper medical care. This is where the tension builds up more in the story. Chris wants to call for help, let people know they're okay, but the landline's cut off, doesn't work, and Clara doesn't have a cell phone. Also, there's no way to drive a car out, the snowstorm's too bad, so they're stuck in this cabin. They don't know for how long. But Clara's not alone. She's got a son, an adult son, with the mind of an 8-year-old. And he's very big, massive. He's described as like a wrestler or a bodybuilder or a bouncer or something. That's how he's described in the book. So he's this big person in this story. And Chris and Kayla start to wonder, is there something about him that feels a bit off? Despite the fact that he acts like an 8-year-old, he's got the mind of an 8-year-old. Is there something else about him? Could he be dangerous? But then with all the help they've been given from Clara and Billy, food, shelter, warmth, a bed to sleep in, there's many spare rooms in this farmhouse. They think they're imagining things. These people, these strangers, Clara and her son, can't be dangerous. They're just imagining it. That's what they think. The next morning, they're in shock. Emma, the youngest daughter, has vanished. She was in the main lounge room, sleeping. Now she's gone. And also Clara's son is gone. He's missing as well. This just amps up the whole tension to, the nth degree in this story. Because we get Chris and Kayla's point of view about this whole circumstance. This potential kidnapping, basically, in the story. And through their eyes, it's just panic and fear and also just anger as well, because how could Kayla's sister go missing from this house? And did Clara's son steal her? Is there something going on? And this is where I'll have to leave the plot, because I don't want to give anything else away, because big things happen soon after this moment. Big twist in the story, big shocks, and they happen continuously as the book progresses. I will mention that this book has past and present storylines. Not my favourite way of storytelling, but in this case it works. The past storyline gives us more details about Clara, about her upbringing, about all the things that formed who she is in her adult life. And I think we needed that. We needed to see that because there's hints, there's all these mysterious things going on in Clara's life that make sense to what's happening in the present day storyline. And that past storyline has a lot of tension in there, a bit of suspense, but mostly tension. And this whole feeling that Clara feels in her present day is so tied in to how she was treated as a child as well. And the fact that her past storyline is played out in the very house they're in now, the very cabin in the woods on the farm they're in now, that also adds a lot of suspense and tension into the story. Because you start to wonder about things in this environment, this small footprint the authors put us in for both storylines. You start to wonder about little things going on in both storylines, little secrets that are told to us, the reader, in both storylines that the characters may not know about. It adds a lot of suspense, tension, a lot of thrills, but it also adds a lot more substance to the characters in this book. I did enjoy this read. That sense of danger that's there in both storylines, the fear, the shocks, they propel the story very much in this book. The characters are used very well in the story as well. They're created very well. I enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed the atmosphere, the closed atmosphere of this story. The cabin in a snowstorm. There's not much room to move in the story, but the author uses the space, that small footprint, very well. And the character movement, character action, that's used very well in the story, because you don't know what's going to happen from moment to moment. The characters can move in any way. It's very unstable, the story. Even though it feels like the author controls the plot very well, the characters feel very unstable, and the characters can act in any way possible. And that just adds so much tension to this book. Kayla, the eldest daughter, her point of view is so strong. It's almost visceral. It's almost tactile. It's almost like you can touch it through her point of view. What she sees, what she feels. It's so strong in the story. And it's so clear as well. This character sees things in black and white. There's not much grey. And it makes what she sees so clear and so strong and so emotive that you can't be helped but dragged in to this character. You fully engage with Kayla in this book because of that strong emotion, the strong feeling she has. So the author used this character very well. And furthermore, as a teenager, the character feels like a teenager. Doesn't feel like she's beyond her years. And that's really good in this book, because there are so many authors who write characters beyond their years. Clara, the helpful woman in the cabin in the woods, the one that brings people into her home, welcomes them and cares for them. I like this character. She's well written. Her past storyline adds a lot to her character. So we learn so much about Clara through that past storyline. Everything we learn just makes up the character in the present day. And it feels so consistent. All the things that happened to her in her childhood as she's growing up in the past storyline, they still hold true to who she is as an adult in the story. That was skillfully done, I think. It's hard to describe a lot about Clara because so much of the story hangs on her. hangs on what she does in the story. So I won't go into too much detail about this character, but she's a great character in the story, and so much to the story, and so much of the tension, suspense just hangs on her, hangs on how she's written and created in this story. Chris, the father, I like him because he's written to be real. He doesn't suddenly become this action hero character that can do anything. It's real. He feels so real. The things that happen to him, his reactions, what he does to protect himself and his daughters, what he does in the face of danger, how he acts in the face of danger as well, all feels real. I've read thrillers in the past where a character like this would suddenly turn into this superhero character or this big hero character that can do anything, even though they've never held a gun before or never fought somebody before physically, never hurt somebody before, but suddenly in a story they switch and become this superstar in a book. This character doesn't do that. And I'm so glad for that, because it feels so real and makes the story feel real and makes what happens to him and how he reacts to things feel so real. And that means you engage with him more, you don't switch off from the character. And I think the author made a great choice in creating this character in that way. I did enjoy this read. There's a lot to like about this book. The whole setup, the atmosphere, the use of a very small footprint, and it was used very skillfully. The way the characters are constructed, the way they see things and feel things, the fact that characters don't suddenly overact and become things they're not, they're so consistent through the story. That whole question, how far would you go to protect yourself and those you love, that just hangs over this book. It's an overarching question, and that question is asked time and time again in the story and answered many times by the characters on both sides, villain or hero. So it's a very interesting book. I rate it a 3.5 out of 5. It's an author I'd read again. This author is new to me. I've not read a book by the author before, but I'm hoping to read more by the same author in the future. On my channel, I review many thrillers. If you enjoy thrillers, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.